Hi, everybody. It's Jay, and I am back in the booth with you for another sneak peek video preview for this week's new release here on Say with Jay. This week, our new release is A Cowboy's Secret Crush. It's the third book in Jessie Gussman's Sweet View Ranch Western Sweet Romance series, and I've got more about the story and a preview for you in just a bit. But as most of you know, Jessie has been including dishes within the scope of her stories, and we've thought it would be fun for me to make those for you here. Well, A Cowboy's Secret Crush is no exception, and we've got a special dish for you that we're going to make in another segment we like to call Cooking with Jay. Now, I say it's a special dish because it's got kind of a unique name that really bears some explanation, but I'm not going to give it to you because it's rather well and quite hilariously explained in the book. But today we're going to be making Sad Eyes Chicken. It's really, really good, not very difficult, very little measurements to make. There's a lot of measuring with your heart in this one. So, without any further ado, let's get started. Oh, and as always, don't worry about trying to capture the directions or the ingredients. They're going to be listed in the description of this video down below. Okay, let's get started. To make Sad Eyes Chicken, you're going to need 1 bag of the steam-in bag style of frozen spinach. You're going to need 1 round of the Boursin cheese. Whatever variety you like is just fine. You're going to need anywhere from 2 to 6 boneless, skinless chicken breasts. That's kind of a testament to how versatile this recipe is, but base that on how many people you're feeding. 2 to 6 boneless, skinless chicken breasts, and you're going to need them either thin cut or pounded down to a 1/2 inch or less thick. For spices, you're going to need just salt, pepper, onion powder, garlic powder, and optionally some Creole seasoning. You're going to need some mayonnaise that we're going to use as a binder for a coating made of panko breadcrumbs and Parmesan cheese. And by the way, the powdered stuff in the jar is absolutely fine for this. Lastly, you're going to need 1 can of petite diced tomatoes, drained, and about 1.5 cups of Italian blend cheese. Alternately, if you don't have the Italian blend, you could use mozzarella. That would work just fine. Okay, to start with, you're going to want to preheat your air fryer or oven to 375 degrees. This recipe works equally well in an air fryer or the oven, or if your oven has a convection setting, all the better. Set it to preheat at 375 degrees. Also, I should mention, if you remember to, go ahead and let your Boursin cheese sit out for like a 1/2 hour before you get started. That'll make the blending a little bit easier. The next step is to prepare your spinach in the microwave according to the package directions. After that, you're going to pat your chicken dry and pound it to a 1/2 inch thickness if necessary. You're going to pat it dry and then season it well with salt, pepper, your onion powder, and your garlic powder. Now, you're going to next add mayonnaise to a bowl, just enough mayonnaise to coat your chicken pieces well, so it's going to vary depending whether or not you're cooking 2 or 6, so just, eyeball that. And you can season this mayonnaise with some Creole seasoning if you like. I like to. It just gives it a little bit more flavor. It's not going to be that strong. Next, we're going to mix our panko breadcrumbs and Parmesan in equal parts. And you want enough to coat your chicken, so you need to just eyeball the amounts that you need. Don't use 2 cups of each if you're doing 2 pieces of chicken. Once you've got your breading mixed up, you're going to dip your chicken in your mayonnaise cover it really well, roll it around in there, get it all covered nicely, and then go from that into the breadcrumb mixture to coat it well. Flip it over back and forth, press it down into the breadcrumbs so they'll stick. Then lay your chicken on either a air fry basket or even a baking sheet is fine. Next, you're going to place your chicken in your air fryer or oven for 10 minutes. Then gently take it out, flip it over, and cook it for another 10 minutes or so until they're 160 degrees in the thickest part. Again, those time measurements are estimates because the variations in the devices you can cook this on, it's hard to tell, but you want to get it to at least 160 degrees. Now, while the chicken is cooking, drain your cooked spinach in a colander lined with a paper towel, and then use another paper towel on top to try to press out and squeeze as much liquid out as possible. Do be careful, it'll be a little bit warm. Put that in a bowl, and you're going to add in the bowl your Boursin cheese, your can of petite diced tomatoes, and mix that up really well. The hot spinach should make that Boursin cheese melt pretty well, but you want it completely spread around and melted throughout. At this point, taste that mixture and add any salt that you think it needs. So just salt to taste. Finally, for this mixture, add the Italian blend cheese to the mixture and stir it up to mix it well. Now, when the chicken is 160 degrees in its thickest part, take it out of the oven and then top each breast with some of the mixture. You then want to return it to the oven until the chicken reaches 165 degrees internal and the mixture is nice and bubbly. Again, it varies depending on your cooking device, but for me, it was right at 10 more minutes. But that will vary, again, depending on the thickness of the chicken and if it's an oven versus an air fryer. Once that chicken hits 165 degrees, the topping is nice and bubbly, pull it out, and it is ready to serve. Here it is, folks. It is absolutely wonderful. The breading is nice and crunchy. The mixture on top just tastes heavenly. Even if you're not a big spinach eater, and frankly, I don't care much for cooked spinach, but in this, it is absolutely fantastic. And folks, that's all there is to it. I hope you will give it a try, and if you do, please let us know how it goes down in the comments. We always love to hear from you, and it's always interesting to know how it turned out for everybody else. Okay, let's talk a little bit about a cowboy's secret crush. Now, to start with, one nice thing about Jessie's books within a series is that they are essentially standalone books. You really don't have to read all the books in the series previously. But it does often help because you will see characters from previous books and it just kind of gives a little background. Well, this one may be more than others. It does help to kind of know what has happened in the last book. So, without spoiling anything for those of you who have not read or listened to A Cowboy's Growing Grace, I'll say this. That story is about Ezra Clybourn, and it starts off with Ezra has a bit of a problem. He's engaged, although he didn't really ask his fiancé to marry him. They kind of talked about it, and she just sort of assumed they were engaged, and he kind of just went along with it. Well, that was all, well, maybe not well and good, but that's how it went until he meets someone to marry. And that's all I'll say about that story. But of course, he did the right thing and called off his engagement with Sandra. That was her name. But Sandra didn't take it particularly well. And she drove from Wyoming where she and the Clybourns were from, to North Dakota to confront Ezra. Well, at the time, we can bring in our main character for this story, Ezra's younger brother, Asher. Asher, as it turns out, has had a long time crush on Sandra, but of course, with her being engaged to his brother, he's never acted on that crush. Well, now he sees an opportunity to help his brother out and to help diffuse the confrontation that is brewing between Sandra and Ezra and his new bride-to-be, Alaska. Asher volunteers to take Sandra out of the picture and take her away for a bit. Sandra actually agrees to go with him to his very isolated, very remote cabin in Montana. Well, and that's where our story today picks up. So, A Cowboy's Secret Crush opens with Asher taking Sandra to his cabin in Montana. Now, he hopes to accomplish two things. One, that she will calm down and diffuse over his brother Ezra, but more than that, he hopes that by being alone together, she'll become closer to him with the hopes of a future relationship. I won't spoil how it goes, but you can certainly find out this Friday. For now, here is the opening scene of A Cowboy's Secret Crush. I hope you enjoy it. Then come back this Friday for the full episode here on Say with Jay. He had never kidnapped anyone before. Asher Clybourn glanced across the seat at the woman sitting beside him. He wasn't sure she had stopped talking since they left Sweetwater, North Dakota 5 hours ago. Her phone had died shortly after they crossed the line from North Dakota into Montana. Ever since then, she'd been rotating between asking him how much longer until they got there, regaling him with stories of the latest movies and TV shows she watched, and despairing that she would ever get her phone plugged in, and heartbroken because she was missing all the latest of her episodes. Asher had not told her that where they were going, there would be no electricity. He also had not told her that he had a charger in the console of his pickup. She stopped talking for several seconds, and he glanced over to see if she was looking at him like she needed him to answer a question she just asked. Her eyes pointed down at her hands, which were clasped in her lap, so he figured he was off the hook. But his heart was troubled, just a little, because Sandra seemed so confident, so worldly. But that little glance showed him that maybe some of it, at least, was a front. He'd never seen her look more insecure. He swallowed, tightening his hold on the steering wheel, and spoke. "There's a rest stop up ahead. Do you need to stop?" "Can we stay for an hour or so I can charge my phone?" Her eyes lifted hopefully, and her voice held suppressed excitement. "No, we can't." He wasn't being mean, not on purpose, but if they wanted to get to his secluded mountain cabin before dark, they couldn't spend a lot of time sitting around. Although, he was going to have to stop in the last small town and grab some things at the grocery store. His cabin was stocked with some canned food, but Sandra seemed like the kind of woman who was used to having fresh produce and some of the finer things in life around her at all times. He could provide those things for her, but she'd always been more interested in his older brother Ezra and had never given him a second glance. Of course, when they were younger, that was totally understandable since she was 4 years older than he was, and in high school, a girl who was 4 years older didn't look back at a boy who was so much younger. But now that they were adults, The age difference shouldn't matter. At least in his mind, it shouldn't. But what did he know? He and his family had spent so much time trying to get their ranch profitable, and then with his parents dying in a car accident, they had even more on their plates. He hadn't really had time to learn what might or might not be important regarding age differences. He could tell himself that was why Sandra was in the pickup with him, because his loyalty was to his family, and his brother needed to focus on his new wife and not have his ex-fiancé in the picture. But Asher knew, deep down, that was a lie. She was in the pickup with him now because of the crush he'd had on her for years. He had seen an opportunity for him to spend time with her, and he hadn't wanted to pass it up. She hadn't said anything more since he'd denied her request to charge her phone, so he prompted her. "But if you need to stop to use the restroom, we can." "How much longer until we get there?" she asked, and for the first time, he heard a little bit of fear in her voice. Immediately, he worked to combat whatever issues she was having. "It'll only be another 5 or so hours, as long as we don't get caught up anywhere. I'll have to stop once for fuel, but I'll probably do that when we're closer." That way, he would have as full of a tank as he could when they headed to the mountains. There was no place to grab fuel for the last 45 minutes of their trip. He loved his cabin because it was remote. That had been the whole selling point of the property for him. He'd spent a lot of time building the cabin, and it was pretty nice now, if he did say so himself, even if it was very rustic. What would Sandra think of it? Hi, this is Jay, and thanks for listening. If you're ready for another great audiobook, here's one we think you might like. Or check out the playlist with all our latest releases. Don't forget to subscribe to Say with Jay, give this video a thumbs up, and tell us what you liked in the comments.